Well, welcome today. Thanks for worshiping with us. If you're a brand new first-time guest with us, we're glad that you're here. If you've been worshiping with us for 20 years or more, we're so glad that you're here as well. Grace Central Coast is one church that meets in multiple locations, multiple campuses, right here in downtown San Luis Obispo. You've heard a little bit this morning about Grace Five Cities and some developments down there. We also are talking about a possible campus up in the North County, Grace North County. And we told you not too long ago about the possibility of a merger up there with a church that has come to us. I just wanted to, again, let you know that that is still in process. That is still very much live. And yet, it's slow and a little bit messy, and it's definitely not a done deal. We are trusting the Lord up there too, exploring what He might have for us. This is a really exciting time in the life of our church. There is a ton going on, and the Lord seems to be putting just a lot of new opportunities in front of us. So, last June at our annual Celebrate Grace service, you may remember, we shared with you that a capital campaign was one of the 5 project priorities on the near-term horizon for our church. Well, today we are thrilled to announce to you that Grace Central Coast is officially embarking on what we're calling our Next Generosity Initiative over the next 6 months. We see this as a critical season of discipleship in the life of our church, following Jesus together as we consider our part really in the next chapter of God's story in and through Grace Central Coast. As we're striving to reach not just the next generation, but also more of our next-door neighbors across the Central Coast with the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ. Our Next Generosity Initiative will involve a whole series of both small and larger events between now and the middle of March, including a 5-week Sunday morning focus beginning in the middle of February. You may even have heard of some of these events. All these various events are designed to share vision and information with the whole of our church family, but slowly along the way in smaller group settings. We're excited and we're trusting the Lord for what He's going to do in us and through us in these coming months, and we're asking again that you join us in prayer as we seek the Lord together. Stay tuned. There's a lot more that's coming, and we can't wait to share that with you along the way. Today, though, we're continuing in our study of the life of David. The life of David is, as we've said, the longest personal narrative of a single individual, not only in the Old Testament, but also in all antiquity. This is indeed a life worth studying. Now, you may have noticed already that we're not looking at every single verse in the David narrative. Rather, we're taking a little bit more of an episodic approach to David. In other words, we're looking at incidents, episodes, occasions, specific themes and factors across David's life. I got to tell you, that's a little bit of a struggle for me because I think there's such rich truths, and in all the verses and in the small details, I actually prefer to go verse by verse and not miss a thing. But our time and space in this season are limited, and quite frankly, it's a good exercise for me to do things a little bit different and to just look at selected themes and passages. So today, we're going to talk about David and Jonathan. It's impossible to talk about the life of David without also talking about the lives of Saul and Jonathan. For these 3 lives are really interwoven across the next chapters of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel 18, 19, and 20. Next week, we're going to look at the really firework dynamics between David and Saul, but today we're going to consider the friendship of David and Jonathan. So here's what we're going to see together this morning: the transformative friendship of Jonathan, the humble surrender of Jonathan, and then finally, the gospel example of Jonathan. So I want to encourage you to grab that outline in your worship folder if you would. Make sure you've got a Bible, a smartphone, a tablet open to 1 Samuel chapter 18 with us, and let's dive in. First, then, the transformative friendship of Jonathan. Beginning in chapter 18 and really continuing all the way through chapter 20, we have described for us an extremely rough, an extremely tough, maybe the toughest season in David's life. These next 3 chapters tell us about that season. David's life during this time is in constant danger as he serves in the house and under the leadership of King Saul. We find out that even in these verses, that King Saul is extremely jealous, extremely envious, extremely threatened by David. This mad king, in fact, is trying to kill him. 6 times Saul tries to kill David, and 6 times David escapes in these next 3 chapters. How did David survive this season of his life? How did he survive the stress? How did David make it through this roughest, toughest season of his life? Well, at least part of the answer is the transformative friendship of Jonathan. It's fascinating. This friendship is described for us really as this season begins, right here at the top of chapter 18, and then as the season ends at the end of chapter 20, this friendship is highlighted and described again at the end of chapter 20. In other words, this friendship between David and Jonathan quite literally brackets or bookends this whole tough season in David's life, which means, I think this detail in the text is communicating to us that this is a critical friendship that sustains David. It contains the madness of King Saul. It contains the struggle of King David during this season. This is how he survived. This is how he made it through. This friendship with Jonathan really transformed this trial for David. It made all that he's going to experience here bearable. And he might not have made it without this friendship. Through a long season of struggle and suffering, Jonathan's friendship was a gift and a grace from God in David's life. Jonathan was a gift to David. This friendship was a grace. This friendship, Jonathan, this was part of the means by which God got his anointed David through this very tough season. David's need for friendship and its detailed description reminds us that we all need friendship. True friendships are gifts and graces from God in our lives. We all need friendship. This is universal. We all have a God-given need for friendship. Do you know that? Are you aware of that? Do you feel that? You and I, we have a need for friendship that God has placed in us. It's one of the many truths that are given to us in the first chapters of the Bible, Genesis 1 through 3. Do you remember what happens there? God creates the world and everything in it, all there is, and God along the way sees what he's made and he blesses it. He proclaims it good. This is good, that's good, this is good, it's good, it's good, it's good. It's all good, except for one thing. God saw the man that he had made, and at this point, he said, "It is not good for a man to be alone." So God makes for the man a friend, for that is what a spouse is, first and foremost, a friend. But why is it not good for a man to be alone? It's an interesting statement, an interesting truth that's being highlighted there. Well, I think Genesis 1:26 actually reveals the answer. Do you know? Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Notice the plural, it's striking. Who is the us and the our here in this verse? Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Who is God talking to? God is talking to himself. The biblical God is utterly unique among all the gods of all other religions because the biblical God is a trinity.